Hey everyone, Editing Alex here. If you're watching this video, this is actually a clip from the exclusive film podcast, Cinemaniacs. If you're cool watching the clips here, welcome to keep doing so. Make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the bell. But if you want to check out our full episodes with some extra segments, you can check that out on your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Otherwise, enjoy the episode. See you guys.
Welcome back to Cinemaniacs, folks, for this is our second installment of Jump Scared, the segment where we get deep into the horror films you love and or hate.
So this week we're going to be taking a look at Drew Hancock's horror/romance/thriller extraordinary film, Companion, starring Sophie Thatcher of Heretic fame and Jack Quaid of many things fame, such as Scream 5, my personal favorite. So Keanu's going to lead us off with his spoiler-free, mostly, plot summary.
Made especially for you, because for whatever reason the plot on Wikipedia just doesn't really speak the juice of the film,
the language
as much.
Of the film.
Yeah. So without further ado, I'll get into my little plot thing here. The plot follows a young couple who go on a weekend getaway with another two couples. A series of shocking revelations and events quickly surface, and things get quite literally out of control, involving a death, robots, and Stalin's birthday.
Okay, so we've got quite a lot to talk about for this film. Look, I went into this film not completely cold. I'd seen the trailer, but I will say I went into this film with sky-high expectations. I'd seen the Rotten Tomatoes score, which we'll get into in a minute, and I was expecting no less than like a horror masterpiece. And then I was really, really pleasantly surprised. The film was like incredibly thought out. It had really like, deep and gritty thematic elements that really raise social questions, and I think that really speaks to how horror films are meant to be made. Like, don't have to be, but I think it really adds to it when they have a deeper social message to analyze. I think I might. What do you have to say about this film, Keanu?
You are just spot on, Alex, with that. I mean, I found so many moments in Companion completely thought-provoking. I was there just like exhaling with like absolute soulment. I was like, how? That's nuts, wild. I mean, like that. One thing I'll say about it, that it really definitely owned, film-wise, is how intelligent it is. It's very much a film that was made to start conversations after you go watch it, and it's the conversations and the ideas and themes it explores that stick with you, as opposed to other horror films, which is very much the aesthetics of them. You remember the images, you remember the unsettling events. In other films,
is a good example of that. I feel like,
yeah, and I do dig films that are emotionally stirring in a way that's like just raw emotional reactions that evoke. I'm blubbering.
That's okay. Okay, this is just a thing for me. I have, for every film that I've gone and watched in a cinema recently, I've brought this notebook with me. And I had yet to have made a single actual note in it. I'd just been sitting in my backpack and I was like, I can remember most of this. But going to Companion after about 15 minutes, I'm like, no. I gotta get this stuff on paper. And you can see I've written here, first half an hour of the film, 4 incredible twists. And I think one of the things that I really appreciated about this film is that the twists feel earned. It's not like the worst M. Night Shyamalan movies where you see the twist and then it feels like, oh, that hasn't been, hinted at all. That feels cheap. That feels unearned. But all of these twists feel earned. And they really add to the unraveling the mystery of the film. And it keeps the audience on edge throughout the entire first half of the film. The other thing that I will say about the film's social message is that unlike a few other, not just horror films, like other films with a social message, which is that this one doesn't feel like it's lecturing you. It doesn't feel didactic. It doesn't feel like it's talking down to you. Look, there were 1 or 2 lines right towards the end where I felt like it was skirting the edge of that. But broadly, I think it really trusts its audience to make up its own. I'm not saying that it leaves it open to interpretation, but I'm saying that it trusts you enough to understand the social message. We'll get into those themes from a bit later. But I will say that I think you've got some critiques of the film here, Keanu.
Ooh, shall we get into critiques then?
We can keep going through pros. I've got a few others.
There are certainly a lot of pros in this, yeah.
So, do you want to talk about the themes first then?
Let's see. Yes. So I found it a very entertaining exploration of. It does certainly explore a lot, but particularly what I sort of resonated with it the most was just how evil and despicable we can be as people, and what's perhaps even more frightening in that we can't really quite comprehend the actuality of it is just how human-like artificial intelligence might become. It's like that anticipation that is what's unsettling about that area. We don't know how far we'll go. I mean, it's evolving so quickly, and it's hard to know just how far we'll how
Yeah.
far we'll go, which is
No,
like
that's a really good point. And also, I think another thing that we need to that this film asks you to think about AI is that humans are imperfect.
Mm.
And AI can really only know what we're willing to teach it and tell it to do. Like, you're the one prompting ChatGPT. Um, if humans are imperfect, what does that say about the AI that we create? Will the AI that we create have the same, like, logical fallacies and emotional fallacies that we have? Or will it be, like, completely above that? And this film really, like, I think paints, like, the AIs as sympathetic, don't get me wrong, but also flawed in their own way. And that the downfall of AI didn't come at the hands of the AI itself like in Terminator or even Age of Ultron and all that. But the downfall of the AI came like at the direction of humans, and I thought that was really powerful. Like there was this one line in the film where they're like, "Oh, they're not allowed to do all that. There are 1,000 government regulations that prevent the robots from doing all these things." And then the character, I won't spoil it, but he does some things with the AI that maybe he's not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think that maybe there are like certain rules of like technology, or even if you want to interpret it this way, rules of nature that really shouldn't be transgressed. And I thought that was really like important.
Yeah, awesome. I liked what you said about how there's like a billion. Like I think he exaggerates the character when he goes, "There's a billion regulations that stop them from like." It's just that there where you think like, okay, so the ceiling is there. Like they're capable of doing this now.
Yeah,
in this film, in this world, they're capable of doing all these things that they're trying to prevent. Like the intelligence, like they can't make him too smart, but they can, but they're not allowed to. But the
and
fact
like
that they can,
yeah. But also, I think that line's really important because like it shows the kind of like. Okay, I think Jack Quaid's character really represents the kind of like AI, like the people that are like, oh, we need to push boundaries. We need to go through this stuff. We need to throw caution to the wind, right? And you see the immediate downfall of that in this film because if you take too many risks, it eventually leads to like the death of not the death of the creator. I don't even think he dies, but that either way, I'll leave that one open. But it leads to like tragedy of the creator itself, which I thought was really like it's the irony of being tortured by your own creation. Well, I'll say that. I also heard that it had an effective slow burn reveal, like at the start. Right, this is in the trailer. There's like what I would call like the opposite of a Chekhov's gun. You see a death happen, right, and you see how it happens, and you see the murder weapon, right. But then later on, and I actually thought that was a little bit cheap in the early thing. I'm like, wait, as if why do they have that murder weapon, right? But then a few minutes later in the film, they're like, you learn how that murder weapon got there and what the plan was for it. And I thought that was really clever. Like you'll have to go watch this film to find that one out. But it like that just struck me as really, really well done.
it's quite clever filmmaking when it's quite clever filmmaking when a director knows how to withdraw information from the audience, and it's not to the point where the audience completely falls out of it. Like the audience does feel this trust in it. They feel there's like this, okay, I'm confused now, but I'm sure this will unfold. It's not the kind of thing that is left, if it's left a mystery, then it's just completely like, okay, then what? It's not clear. In a bad way, yeah.
The mystery, I feel like that would have been a mistake. But
so it is very clever filmmaking. It's, I think, something that's very, very few directors have been able to do successfully. It's bloody hard to do that, but certainly Drew Hancock did it really well in this Companion.
Absolutely. I will say this is one thing I wrote down in the cinema. It just said vaguely similar to Abigail, and I don't think I meant it as like similar to the characterization of Abigail. But I'm going to keep beating this dead horse. I think again they gave away too much in the marketing. I think it was done better than Abigail because in Abigail, right, it's at least 45 minutes. You've heard me rattle on about this before, where like the characters don't know that the vampire is going to start killing everyone. Right? In this film, it's the same sort of thing in that most of like in the audience, it feels like some kind of like play within a play where they're all pretending not to know that one of the characters is a robot, right? But you as the audience who have seen the trailer and all the marketing at them, which this has been really highlighted, know that, and you're just waiting for the film to start. But I feel like it's actually okay in this one because it only goes for like 20 minutes, and then it's almost like they're doing the work so that you can enjoy the rest of the film. What else do I have here?
While you're there, in fairness of that, like where it's the trailer gives away a big part of the film. I just wonder that if they didn't reveal that, then what else would be in the trailer that would be like, it's hard because what else really will pull them in, really?
Yeah, no, I understand why they have to do it. I'm saying in an ideal world, like I wish I didn't know that going in. I would have enjoyed it more. I would have been like, oh my god, that reveal was incredible. Like, but again, it's what got me into the cinema, so that's fair. I just want to talk about some of the themes right now. Like, this is the social message of the film, and I don't think this will come as a surprise to many. And I think this social message is what could give it a chance at pulling out some awards. I think like ultimately the core of the social message of the film is it's a critique on masculine like control of women and the lack of autonomy by women. Like, you see stuff recently about tightening abortion laws and men like literally making decisions for women, right? I think that's a fair take. And then you get lines in the film where one character literally says, "You can't control me, I'm not a robot." And then you see the response by the man to that, which I thought was really powerful. You also see the way that like the man treats the robot, and he literally goes, "Go to sleep, Iris," and like does it immediately. And then you get one character who I thought was like really funny, but this line was horrific. And he goes, "This is what you are for," and that almost felt like the it was speaking directly to the audience. Yeah.
That brings up something else.
Yeah.
I mean, another like issue is like this. There's this growing trend of men in this modern world where they're sort of turning more to AI to explore romantic experiences with them, and I feel like a very important, very significant concern that this film brings up is just how the dangers of removing removing humanity from a person, of a figure. Like, if it's not a person, then you can do anything to them.
Yep.
It's like I don't know if I can say the P word, but like the dangers of pornography, where it takes away the humanity of people, where they're just objects. And when you see someone in that way, it's not hard to just exploit them. It's not hard to treat them as an inferior thing.
And you know what? Yeah, there's another line in the film that backs that up. Like right towards the end, they've got a guy from the company that makes the robots, and he literally says, "This is why some people." Sorry, it seems like one of those people that lock the door in the basement and let like it's just like little bits of the like hints into this like world. And I think that was the other thing that I really appreciated about this film, is that it's kind of like it's clearly set in the near future, right? But it feels so grounded. They've like the references to the future they've done so sparingly. Like, no one's got holograms or like anything like, completely science fiction. But you see it in that, like, all the characters, most of the characters are driving electric cars. There's a self-driving car. Like, but again, it feels grounded. It feels like something that could happen in the near future, and it feels like a cautionary tale as to what the film's trying to warn about. Now, Keanu, I'm going to say something controversial, and you can check me here if you think I'm being unfair.
Far away.
I felt some sympathy for who I think the film wanted to be the villain, for Jack Quaid's character. And he says this one line where he's talking to the robot, and he goes, "Look, I'm a nice guy. I'm decent. The world out there, it's too tough." And then I didn't write this quote down, but he says, like, the world out there is a game. And I kind of read that as like the way society has gamified romantic, relationships and whatnot. Like, dating apps these days, like, people like they've been designed in the same strategy as the way gambling companies design poker machines, to think that you're one like away from meeting your perfect match. Do you think that's a fair take? Because I know he does some monstrous things, and I'm not saying that he's a redeemable character. He's clearly a sociopath. But I did feel some sympathy for him. And I think that, like, with what we've seen in politics recently about young men turning to the right and young men turning away from, like, centrist political views and whatnot, and, like, wanting, like, a return to the glory days of masculinity. Like, for those of you watching the audio podcast, I'm doing heavy quotes right here because it's not something I agree with. But I think the film is really, like, is trying to give, like, male viewers to this film an in. Like, to try and relate to, like, the way other people feel. Like, what do you think about that, Keanu?
I think it's a completely valid take you got, because every good villain in a movie has a flaw to them that has a pain, has a trauma to them. And I think and what I was thinking about this character, Dennis Quaid's character, is just how, what's this word I'm thinking of? How restrained he is as a person from human interaction. Like, you think of what his experience could have been like, where he might have tried to initiate relationships with women or anybody, and it just
And
never
shot
he just
down. Yeah,
shot
I
down.
could
But
see
like,
that.
and it definitely does bring up this culture where, we're entering this culture where, or this era where men are completely petrified to initiate any social connection with any social connection, a simple hello or a good morning or a greeting
And
or a conversation. It's become completely like a very big thing, a very
it's true.
major fearful
It's true.
thing.
And a lot of men feel like from the start they're being like, portrayed as the enemy, or as like it's like, especially in left wing circles. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a leftist, and this isn't stuff I necessarily believe, but a lot of young men feel that like, that they're being excluded by the majority of society, and that like, like you see all the things that are like all men are like, that sort of stuff. Like, I think that, again, that's something that the film's really trying to get at there.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a pretty good discussion of the film. Do you have any? You've got some critiques of the film here.
There's one, I don't know what even to call it, a minor critique of this film, because although it's missing a big chunk of what other films sort of find strength in, it definitely doesn't take away as many points as you would expect. Where it more than makes up for from an intellectual standpoint, from like an aesthetic standpoint, from a surface element standpoint, in terms of like how the form, in terms of cinematography and sound design and aesthetic style, its own like flair, artistic flair, it really is kind of not very strong.
Yeah,
in that sort of like, I can't remember a single. Well, it's hard to remember an image that stuck.
Oh,
In the
I
way
remember
that
one. There's one image that really stuck with me, but it's a massive spoiler. I'll just say that it's two characters sitting on a couch, and one of them is not active. We'll just leave it at that. But like, if you watch the film, that shot really stuck with me, and I thought it was meant to be a comparison of like the past and the future. But that's something I definitely won't spoil.
But like, compare it to a film. I can tell it to you, Alex, because you're so fond of this film. Compare it to compare it to Smile.
Oh God!
from an aesthetic standpoint, which one is louder? Which one
Smile.
just like, yeah?
I think absolutely Smile. But you know what though? I'm gonna have to push back on that a little bit here, because while I think Smile has some like really good artistic, like, I think that Companion, like, it's a bit bolder in its use of color. Through so much of Smile, it's really dark. Actually, no. You know what? I think the first Smile movie's got some, like, you've got the pink hospital and like that, but I think there's some really like good shots in Companion. Like, you've got the robot sitting on the top of the cliff wearing like a pink getaway, like, beach outfit. And I thought that was really like, that's a good shot. I see what you're getting at, but I think it's got a few like decent uses. But yeah, I'll continue.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, it wasn't a huge letdown, really, because the film more than made up for it in its intellectual approach. Like, this wasn't a film that wanted to, startle you, unsettle you from like a raw direct, like directly. But yeah, like what I said before, what it does, what I think it is intended to do is start conversations about a whole bunch of topics we were talking about just then. We just touch on based on a whole different variety of different issues that we're currently or about to might enter into in the near future.
Of course. And like, the film's absolutely succeeded about that. I've had so many different conversations with different people about this film, and they've all brought their own, like, upbringings and own values into it. And I thought it's been like a really, like, a good conversation starter, and it's really helped the discourse around these issues, I think. This is the other thing I'd like to quickly add about this film. Is that, okay, Keanu, remember Wolfman? We didn't like that film. I think that's a fair.
I wish I didn't remember, but yes, go ahead.
Exactly. The budget of Wolfman, Keanu, was $25 million. The budget of Companion was $10 million. And I've got to say, Companion did a lot more with a lot less. They knew their limitations with budget. The film was largely set in one location. It was set at that beach house, the lake house, right? You know, you had like things on like roads and stuff. That wouldn't have been that expensive to shoot. They knew they had a 10 million budget to work with, and so they didn't try to dazzle you with special effects. Like, you know, remember that first scene at the start of Wolfman where they do the car crash through the trees and it looked really fake? Companion just realizes their limitations. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to rely on the intellectual message, and I thought that was really good. And if we're looking at the critical reception of the film, Keanu, 94% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, as opposed to what was it, like 30 for Wolfman? Budget's not everything. You can do a lot with a lot less. Like, you know,
that's true. Yeah.
Again, like, you know, young directors complain about, oh, you know, I don't have the budget to work with this. I don't have this. They made Blair Witch Project out of nothing. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. I understand that budget's important, but you can do a lot with a lot less. And Wolfman is a good example of that.
Like, say what you want about the production and post-production stage of a film being made, a lot of its success is set before they even pick up the damn camera.
Mm-hmm.
As Alfred Hitchcock put it profoundly, you need three things to make a good film: the script, and the script. So I mean, like that in the pre-production phase, those base foundational elements to the film, you can't you can try and make up for it in, you know, a good edit and a good execution on production, but that is what sets up a lot of the strength of the film by the end. And I reckon that Companion had that good foundation where they didn't need to make up for that all these other things with flashy cinematography and flashy this, flashy that, and big elaborate sets and big stars, because a lot of the strength lies in the narrative, in its issues that it explores, and it takes a lot of research, a lot of careful approach, careful thought to deliver those things as simply and as directly as and interestingly as possible, without the need to compensate with all this other yammering business.
Superfluous rubbish. Yeah, I can't believe I've never heard that quote. That is so good.
It's like, profound, isn't it? Yeah,
it's profound, but it's spot on. Like, you can't have, like, you know, editing can't make up for a bad script. Special effects can't make up for a good script. For a bad script. Like, the best actors can't make up for a bad script. Like, you know, I'm guilty of this because, like, I really am grading Companion on a curve. That's the honest truth. I think part of the reason I enjoyed the film so much is it's the exact subset of horror that I really like, with a bunch of actors that I also really like. It had Lucas Gage from Smile 2. It had Jack Quaid from Scream 5, one of my favorite horror films of all time. Sophie Thatcher. Like, you know, Heretic I didn't enjoy as much, but I like her performance in it was stellar. And they all did a really good job in this film. And in that it's like a horror comedy, the fact that it had that deeper social message really, really increased, like, my enjoyment of the film. And, like, I really can't ask the audience to watch it enough. That's the honest truth. And, like, one last thing I'll say. Oh, I've just cut you off, Ken. I'm so sorry. No. We are now living in an era where it's not Halloween. It's not Halloween. And the next, like, if we're including last week, in the span of 4 weeks, we're getting what I hope will be 3 stellar horror movies. We're getting Companion, which we've watched and we've enjoyed. We're getting Heart Eyes in 2 weeks. Which, you know, I don't think will have the same social message, but it looks funny, and I'm sure it will be better than Wolfman. And then we've got The Monkey, which is directed by Osgood Perkins, the same guy that did Longlegs, and it's based on a Stephen King book. So, like, you know, all hail to horror as the you know, the genre that's bringing people back to the cinema and appreciating the art. Now, Keanu, I've held you up for long enough.
I've just invented a little quote, which I hope is original, in my head, and this goes out to upcoming filmmakers out there, and that is, you can't, I repeat, you cannot build the Burj... Oh, no, sorry. Rephrase.
No, that's okay. We'll take 2.
The Burj Khalifa was not built on toothpick pillars, okay? You can't have a cheap foundation, you can't have a weak foundation, and build something good off of it. There needs to be some core before you even pick up the camera. And the edit is where... The edit is used too much in films. This is the problem nowadays. The post-production is used too much, is been relied upon too much to save a film.
To stitch together a bad film. Exactly.
To plug holes, to save different flaws. I understand. I went to film school. That's what editing was mostly for, from my experience. Plugging holes. It was plugging holes as you went along, trying to get this narrative together in a little cohesive and as interesting as possible.
Yeah. In my head, I'm just seeing, like, the meme of the Band-Aid over the crack in the road.
Yeah.
Like, but that's what editing is. Like, you know, you're putting, like, editing is important, but again, it cannot fix a bad film. Like that Burj Khalifa quote, Keanu, spot on. It's
And now-
spot on. A good film
Yeah.
is not made in the editing room. It's made in the writer's room, and that's just a fact.
And I'm not saying that, like, these professional filmmakers, they don't have any flaws that they have to fix and post. It's absolutely like I'm saying that's post production is capable of that. Doesn't mean it should be used for that. In an ideal world, you should have everything right from production. Everything's been tip top perfect, and it's just ready to be put together in the post production. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about color and difference blending. I could rant about this difference blending that I had to do.
Oh god, we've given Keanu PTSD. I'm sorry. Keanu, come back to me. Come back to me.
But yes, it can be used for that. It can be used to fix problems, and it should. If there's problems, fix them by all means.
Mhm.
But do not rely on it, because I'm telling you, it is worth just getting it right when you're there.
100%. And you know what? Like I keep saying, Keanu, editing. You can have a decent film without a good camera, but you can't have whatever the saying is. Like you know what I'm saying. The script is more important than anything else. I think. Like,
This is why.
The story is what the film is about.
Yes, this is why I always reference Stanley Kubrick, a guy who had a meticulous approach that bordered on obsession and like just this sick obsession with just.
But that's what you need. You need to be obsessed with your film.
In the research and the writing of the script and the approach to the production and on production, getting it shot, 30 takes until it's done right perfectly. Then we can move on. And even then, the editing was still a demanding task because you have to tackle these big things and try and get them across in an edit. And the edit is a very big part of the storytelling, if not one of the biggest. It's literally where the film is born.
100%. 100%.
Literally. And that's what it should be treated as primarily, not an eraser and not a Sharpie, not a highlighter that, is like, fixing and white out and this and the and stitch this up and tape this and get some duct tape for that and then rip this off and put that on. And put some glitter on that, and I can do a whole different bunch of analogies and that.
I know, I understand exactly what you mean. That's just a very valid point, Keanu. So, I have one more question for you, Keanu. Were you jump scared?
Was I jump scared? Absolutely. Companion was great. Give it a watch if you haven't watched it already. I know we spoiled a lot, but give it a watch if you haven't watched it.
Go watch the film. I promise you, we've been very careful. We might have spoiled some of the plot elements, but I promise you haven't spoiled anything that hasn't been revealed in the trailer.
Yeah.
And I promise you will still get a good watch out of this film. So go watch it, go support it, go tell the studios that you like these kind of films. And with that, we'll be back for the Hall of Fame and the Cinemaniacs movie quiz. See you then, guys.